Hello, my name is Brett Formosa, and welcome to a Unity tutorial video series for beginners. For this series, I will go through each step with the mindset that all you've done is install Unity with no prior research or experience to make sure everyone can feel included and learn as we go. You can contact me either through the comment section down below, by visiting my personal website, or by leaving a message on my itch.io page. The links are in the description of this video. Last video, we created a basic menu system to create a mostly functional game loop. However, I left you with some challenges to complete before this video to help solidify your learning. In this video, we are going to complete these challenges as well as go over how to import assets into the Unity project. Let's get started with part 9. As I mentioned previously, I left 3 challenges for you to complete. If you completed them, then perfect. However, if you got stuck or didn't really want to do them, no problem at all, as we will quickly go over how to complete those tasks at hand and finish with importing assets for the player game object as well as importing fonts and audio. The first challenge was changing the background to black. This is simply done by clicking on the main camera game object in the game scene and click the background color and change it to black. With that challenge out of the way, let's move on to the second challenge, which is adding functionality to the buttons in the game scene. Let's just add the Game Manager empty game object if you haven't yet with the attached Game Manager script and add the functionality the same way we did in the previous video. I'm going to quickly go through that and follow along if you haven't done it yet. However, we don't have the code to go back to the main menu, which we will add in a moment. Once the restart and quit button functionality is added, let's quickly add the code needed to go back to the main menu. Open up the Game Manager script and then add a new public void main menu function. We just need to write a similar line of code like we wrote in the play game function. So let's add scene manager.loadScene 0 in the parentheses. Instead of the 1, make sure the scene goes back to the main menu scene and not back to the game scene. Save the script and go back into the Unity editor and add the functionality. Once that is done, we are done with the second challenge. Open up the Score Manager script and let's add the few bits of code to have the Game Over panel pop up when the max score is reached. With the variables, let's add public game object Game Over panel and public TMP underscore text Game Over panel text. I'll go over the TMP underscore text game over panel text in a moment, but first we just need to add a simple if statement to the increase score function. We just need to write if, and then in parentheses, current score is greater than or equal to max score, and then in the curly brackets, we will write game over panel text dot text equals, and then in quotations, you win. What this does is when the max score is reached, instead of the game over panel saying game over, it'll say you win, so the player knows the max score was reached. We also need to write game over panel dot set active equals true. Save this, and let's fill out the inspector with the new variables. The game over panel game object goes into the game over panel area of the score manager, as well as the text mesh pro saying game over goes into the game over panel text area. Once these are filled in, hit play and let's make sure it works. We just need to add a few more things to make sure the countdown stops when the player reaches the max score, as well as make sure the game over panel says game over now once the timer reaches 0. One way to assure this happens is by writing the same game over panel text line to the script. So let's open the countdown UI script and add the few pieces of code in there so everything will run smoothly. Once the script is open, just add public TMP underscore text game over panel text. In the fixed update function as well, let's stop the timer if the game over panel is open due to the max score being reached. An easy way to do this is put the current code in another if statement. Let's write if, and then in parentheses, exclamation mark, game over panel dot active in hierarchy. Then in the curly brackets, we will have the already existing code. Then we will write else return. What the active in hierarchy means is if the set active of the game object is true. Because the exclamation mark is in the front of the game over panel dot active in hierarchy, this code is triggered if the game object is not active in the hierarchy. Then in the countdown function where it says game over panel dot set active true, we will add the new game over panel text dot text equals, and then in quotations, game over. Save the script and make sure the game over panel text variable is filled on the countdown UI script in the inspector. This is the third challenge done, but there was one thing that I didn't mention to see if you added it to continue the thought process of making sure the canvas shapes to the monitor being used. Go to the main menu scene and click on the canvas game object. Then change the UI scale mode from constant pixel size to scale with screen size and change the resolution to the resolution you prefer. If you caught this from the last video without me mentioning it, good job. It means that you are learning and you are thinking about optimization and accessibility between different monitor sizes. With this all out of the way, let's get to the core video, and that is importing assets, which honestly isn't that long of a process. We are going to add a sprite, a font, and audio to the game. However, we won't add the audio functionality that is going to be video. One thing that we should do is organization so we can find files faster. We have a lot of scripts sitting in the main assets folder in the project window, so let's create a new scripts folder to move the scripts to. Right-click on the project asset window and go to Create and click Folder. Once this is done, drag and drop all of the assets into the newly created folder. Let's also add a Sprites, Audio, and Fonts folder as well for the assets we are going to import. If you don't have any assets to import, you can find font files online to download and also audio files to download. Since the ones I am using are not my own, I unfortunately cannot share them. However, the sprite I made myself via Photoshop. If you want the player game object file, feel free to download it and use it for your own project. The link is in the description below. Similar to how we moved the scripts to the script folder, we just need to drag and drop the new assets into the Unity project and add them to their proper folders. That is honestly how we import the assets. It is just as simple as that. However, let's change things around to implement the imported assets. Let's start with the font. Right-click on the imported font file, go to Create, Text Mesh Pro, and then click on Font Asset. This will create a usable font asset with the imported font that we can drag and drop in the inspector for TextMesh Pro's text. Head on over to the main menu scene and click on the title game object. Under the text box, you will see a box that says Font Asset. Drag and drop the newly created font asset to that box and it will change the font right away. Move around the text to make sure it looks the way you want with the new font added. With this done, you have added and implemented a new font. Let's change the player game object model as well. Head on over to the game scene and click on the player game object. In Sprite Renderer, you'll see the sprite that we changed in an earlier video. Drag and drop the sprite asset into this box and the player game object should change to the new sprite. If you are using the sprite I provided, you'll notice that the sprite is massive compared to our previous sprite. All we need to do is fix it up with the game object scale to make it back to a decent size. I find changing the size to 0.075 on all axes works well enough. After that, we just need to change our player's collider so it represents the new sprite. I find the size of 5 on the x-axis and 13.5 on the y-axis works well enough for us. One thing to note is that the collider doesn't need to be the exact size of the actual sprite. Having rudimentary colliders makes the game run smoother. Even in AAA games, for example, you'll very rarely see a collider fit pixel perfect with the game object, as it's easier for engines to render basic shapes instead of complex shapes for game object colliders. Perfect. With that done, we have imported and integrated assets that aren't native to the Unity engine, and we are done with this quick video. With this done, I'm going to end the video here. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to let me know down below. In the next video, we are going to use the imported audio files with our player game object to incorporate some audio feedback into our game so it isn't silent. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.